So the first biological molecule I'll be talking about are carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. And the way to remember which atoms make up carbohydrates is kind of looking at the name. So you have carbon, and that's carbo, and then you have hydrates. And so when you look at the name, you have hydrates, and that helps you remember that there's a hydrogen atom or hydrogen atoms in carbohydrates. Furthermore, you also have an oxygen, and this isn't really found in the name, but it's key to remember that oxygen is also one of the 3 atoms that are found in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates can be split up into monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. And the way to remember this is also in the name. So you have mono means 1. So you have 1 unit. Di meaning 2 helps you remember that there are 2 units in disaccharides. And poly meaning many. You have many monomers, and the monomers are the monosaccharides. And so just to help you spell out monosaccharides, spelled SACCHARIDES. So these are monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. These are further classified into 2 subgroups. Let's use a different color. You have aldose and you have ketose, based on the placement of their carbonyl group. And a carbonyl group is a carbon atom double bonded to an oxygen atom. And so in an aldose sugar, you have the carbonyl group at the end, while in a ketose sugar, its carbonyl group is found in the middle. And so this is the difference between these 2 sugars, or these 2 subclasses of the sugar. And let's write out how to spell carbonyl. And there's many other subgroups or side chains that are found in different biological molecules. So in sugars, you can also find hydroxyl groups and other side groups that can be found in other molecules are carboxyl. You have amine, which can be found in amino acids. You have sulfhydryl. Then you also have phosphate groups. And so these can be found in a number of different large biological molecules ranging from proteins to nucleic acids. I'll be going further into each of these groups as we see them in the future. So now I'm going to be going into the actual structure of these sugars. And to do this, I'm going to have to draw a monosaccharide that you probably have heard of before, called glucose. And when I'm drawing this structure, you may notice that I'm only labeling the oxygen and the hydrogens found in this structure. And this is because in carbohydrates, the structure is mainly made up of carbons. And so when I'm circling these are the 6 carbons that are found in glucose. That's right, glucose. In glucose. And that's because glucose is a hexose sugar. So it has 6 carbons. And because the structure is made out of carbons, it's not usual. You can find a lot of diagrams that don't mark these atoms in the structure. Another hexose sugar that I'm going to be drawing out is fructose. And when you look at the fructose, you can see that it looks like a pentagon. So I said there were 6 carbons in fructose because it's a hexose sugar. So before I show you where these carbons are, I'd like you to look at this diagram and think for yourself where they might be. And so pause the video, and when you come back, I'll be showing you how fructose is structured. Okay, well, you're back, and in fructose, you can find these carbons again at these corners. So you have these 6 carbon atoms in its structure. And so both glucose and let's write out fructose have these 6 carbons. Now I'm going to be talking about how you can create disaccharides from these monosaccharides. And so the disaccharide that's created between glucose and fructose is called sucrose. And you probably had this in food or snacks that you ate. And this is common table sugar. So when these two monosaccharides are combined, it combines through a process called dehydration synthesis. Let's write this out. Dehydration synthesis. To understand this process, you can look at the word. So dehydration means the loss of water, and synthesis means the creation of something. And so when you're understanding how dehydration synthesis occurs, you can think about the loss of water between these two molecules. And I'm going to be drawing a simplified version. So this is our glucose, and you have its hydroxyl group at the here, and then you have fructose with its hydroxyl group. And these two hydroxyl groups are going to be the main factors in this dehydration synthesis process. So water is made up of H2O. Let's write this out. Water is made of H2O. So this is water. When you look at the two hydroxyl groups, you have 2 oxygens and 2 hydrogens. So the way that dehydration synthesis occurs, these oxygen and 2 hydrogens combine and leave. And so these structures are dehydrated, leaving behind this oxygen, and this oxygen, let's do this in this color, this oxygen is left behind to connect these two molecules. And so this is how you get a disaccharide. So hopefully this helps you understand that through the loss of water, you get these two molecules to combine through a process called dehydration synthesis. Another disaccharide that's commonly found is maltose, and this is between a glucose and a glucose molecule, and so dehydration synthesis occurs. Multiple of these sugar molecules bonded together are called polysaccharides, and we're going to talk about polysaccharides. Polysaccharides. And there's 2 classes of polysaccharides. You have storage polysaccharides, and you have structural polysaccharides. Sorry about that. So you have structural polysaccharides. Let's go down a bit more. So storage polysaccharides are used for the storage of nutrients. So in plants, let's draw our plant. In plants, the storage polysaccharide that's found is called starch. And starch is made up of alpha glucose. And so when I'm drawing this alpha glucose, you can notice that the 2 hydroxyl groups are both down. In animals, the storage polysaccharide is glycogen. So starch is straight, and in animals like humans, it's branched. And so you get this branched structure. And so these are the 2 storage polysaccharides that are largely found. Now the second type of polysaccharide is structural. And structural polysaccharides are made up of beta glucose. So let's write out how beta glucose looks. As you can see, it has an alternation of these hydroxyl groups. So one is down and one is up. And the structural polysaccharides can make up cell walls of fungi, the exoskeletons of arthropods or bugs, and it can also make up cellulose, or the structural components of plants. Now, for our summary of carbohydrates, you can see that you have 3 atoms that make up carbohydrates: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. You have monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. And when you look at the 2 subclasses of carbohydrates, you have aldose sugars and ketose sugars based on the placement of their carbonyl group. We also looked at how the monosaccharides are created into disaccharides through a process called dehydration synthesis. And furthermore, the structure of polysaccharides and the 2 subclasses. Next lesson, we'll be talking about proteins, which have a lot of cool functions in the body. And so I hope you learn more through these lessons. Thank you.